Hey, this is Mike LaPlante, and I'm Charles Bodie, the inventor of the OxyGreen Blaster and Bedbug removal system. And today I'm just going to have a short little interview with Mike, who's been a system owner of the OxyGreen Blaster and Bedbug removal system for some time. And he's going to share with you a little bit of his experience. So, Mike, to get started, can you tell me a little bit about you, your background, and your business? Just how long have you been a PCO, and what is your business like?
Well, we're located here in Oklahoma, so we've got all kinds of weird, unique beasts that inhabit our area. But I've been a PCO going into my sixth year now. We've had five very successful years. We're showing continuous growth. Um, we've got five trucks out on the road. We're doing this year. I think we're projected to do about $750,000. Not a lot by some companies, but significant growth in our company.
Well,
Uh,
I imagine in Oklahoma that's a pretty large size outfit. Your population's spread out a little bit further than some states.
that is correct. And also in Oklahoma City, we don't have the price point that some of these other states do. Now, our typical sales call is probably $65 versus some of these states. Heck, even in Tulsa, the average sales call is probably $90. So,
Sure.
that's 50% more than what we're making here on our average call. So, really, I think that dictates it. Oklahoma has been almost recession proof, uh, so we don't have the high cost of living that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So I'd be over $1 million if I lived in another part of the country, I'm sure.
Oh,
Uh,
sounds like it.
but anyway, one of the things I did 5 years ago, whenever I started the company, we did one bed bug treatment that year um, for the year. And bed bugs were still kind of the folklore, people had heard about stuff. Uh, and about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I did a seminar on bed bugs. I elected to specialize in a few areas. One of those are ants. The other one is honeybees, and then of course bed bugs. And these are the three areas I really target. I really focus my education on, and I try to stay up on this stuff as much as I can. So I stay state of the art on thing I do.
Hmm.
To me, cost is not the issue. Results is the objective. So I'm not going to use cheap chemicals or cheap treatments or whatever that I'm going to have to spend more money on getting called back on. So I use state of the art stuff. I want to do everything the first
So on
time.
that first bed bug job, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but on the first bed bug job, what did you use?
We used, I believe we used Phantom, which at that time was one of the few chemicals that was labeled for bed bugs.
I got it. And what were
Even
the results like? Did you have to go back, or were you able to get them in one treatment?
though we had to go back. Bed bugs were still kind of unknown back then, and all your books said you could go and kill them with, your typical pyrethroid or pyrethrin chemicals. There were specific chemicals that were labeled for it,
Hmm.
but I found that not to be true.
I
I
see.
found you had to go back, you had to use a dust, you had to use an aerosol, you had to use your foot and your fingers and anything else you could to kill these guys.
Yeah.
So chemicals were not going to do it for me.
So
So I
you
went
found you
to
had to really become an expert in identifying where they were when you were using the chemicals, because if you didn't find them, you were in trouble.
That's correct. And I'm sure that people realize it now, but back then you didn't realize how far away they could hide. You could treat a bedroom because everybody kind of fell under the old adage bed bug, so they're in the
Sure.
bed.
Yep.
And bed bug follows you wherever you lay down at because if they can feed on you unbeknownst to you, that's now a new bed to them. So you'll get them in couches. I've seen them in wheelchairs. I've seen them, different places that people sit for any length of time that they can feed unnoticed, and that's where they thrive at.
So, okay, so you used this chemical treatment on your first job. You weren't probably very happy that you had to go back, I imagine.
No, not at all.
So you started looking for something else. You've done other types of treatments, I know you told me. What other kinds have you done?
I did steam treatment for a little while. After I found out that didn't work, I started doing some research, found out that steam was a treatment. So I went and bought several different types of steamers, and we started steaming them. here's the problem. Uh, you got to put a cloth over your steam wand, or else you just, as soon as you get down there and you release that steam, you just catapult the sucker across the room.
Oh,
So you've just relocated this guy, giving him free airfare across the room somewhere. So you got to put a towel or a sock or something over there to keep the air pressure out to where just steam comes out. Then on top of that, you got to keep this bug under the steam for about 30 seconds to a minute.
wow.
Now, I don't know how you would feel if somebody was shooting you with a blast of steam.
Like
I
a
don't think you
lobster
just
in a
there.
pot.
Absolutely, you take off running, and that's what these. So you're doing a lot of chasing. I'm sure you can invest in a thousands of dollars steamer that you can go in there and probably shoot a steam. You know, uh, the width of the bed, shoot a stream of steam. But we didn't have that, so we tried the steam treatment, and it was okay. And we used chemicals. After I went to a seminar on bed bugs, they were talking about using heat, and two professors from Florida State came up here to Oklahoma. And these guys, that's all they do is 40 hours a week study bed bugs. They don't study mosquitoes, gnats, ants, nothing.
Sure.
Just so what you hear in the PCO industry, I tended to ignore because I'm going to believe somebody that makes their living on bed bugs, not on bugs, but on bed bug specific. So I want to listen to them a little more.
Yep.
Uh, so they introduced us to the heat treatment, in which case I started doing it. I invested the dollars, necessary to build the heat chambers and that. So then we started treating these homes by the room. We would build this heat chamber, 8 foot by 4 foot high. So you had 32 uh, cubic foot in there, and you would stack what you could in there along with three heaters and three fans.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would seal it up and you would cook it for about 4 hours. You get
Mm.
the temperature up to 130, 140 degrees, uh, and then you tear it down and go home. Well, one day I got tired of tearing this thing up, setting it up, tearing it down, setting it up, tearing it down. And also, I started noticing bed bugs in other areas. So I said, well, we'll just use the room as our box. So we started heating these places up by the room. I position these heaters in corners of rooms with fans to circulate the heat from the outside in because once again, the bed bug runs from heat. So some of these magnificent heat systems are out there, and they only cost you $60,000, $80,000. Um, they've got this heat head that you stick in the middle of the room, and then you put some fans around there, and you're heating the room from the inside out. So where are you taking the bed bugs to?
To the perimeter.
You're taking them to the perimeter every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really did a lot of studies. I came up with using diatomaceous earth, blend diatomaceous earth in with one of my dust insecticides along with some silica. Now they're actually making these things that come that way. Um, and I started using that along with this heat system. And what I would do is I would go in and inspect the home until I found no more living bed bugs. So what that does is that equals about 8 to 28 hours a day that you spend heating up this one apartment or home, whatever.
Did you
Uh,
ever have any delamination issues? What was your learning curve like using heat?
the biggest thing that I ran into was getting enough power to turn on all these heaters and all these fans.
That's a
As
common
far,
complaint. I know a lot of PCOs that in the big cities that pull in their own, pull behind diesel powered generators to power up their units to get that juice.
and the community loves it when you power up a diesel generator to run for about 15 hours. Uh, After they get home from a long, hard day of work and they got to listen to that grrr constantly going on. So I
Absolutely.
know they really love that,
Yeah.
but you're exactly right. That's your alternative, and I think one of those generators probably run about $8,000, $10,000.
Hmm.
So once again, there's a pretty good expense. Um, but as far as delamination goes, personally, I never experienced that. I've been fortunate there. However, I have warped doors.
Hmm.
So you go in a room that's been cooking, you got it at 140 degrees in there and 75 degrees on the outside, and you all of a sudden notice you can't get in and out of that door. So I have warped doors, but I haven't experienced the delamination.
So both with both the steaming system and with the heat system, um, you found that there were complications and a learning curve. You really had to practice with both to get good at using it, correct?
Absolutely correct. At trial and error.
And the you liked heat, am I right? It
I love heat.
worked. It
Love
worked.
heat. Yep.
Yep. And but the real big problem is man hours and babysitting time, correct?
And finding enough power outlets to power it.
And finding enough power.
So logistics is an issue.
So
Yes,
logistics is an issue. So when originally, I think you said you found my ad in PCT magazine, and I know you told me that you were attracted to time. So when I told you you could kill all the bed bugs in an apartment with one tech in 6 hours, you thought I was crazy,
I did.
and you were a
But
skeptic.
it intrigued me.
What type of research did you do to convince yourself that there might be a scientific basis or that it might work before you laid down your money to buy a system from me? And in fact, you've bought two.
I only did probably 10 or 15 hours of research.
Okay.
Literally, when I got that ad, I went right to the internet and I started researching O3. I knew nothing about O3. I know lightning creates it, by splitting the molecule and that, but I didn't know any other stuff that went along with it. I definitely didn't know that it was a hazardous uh, gas that could be out there in large doses.
Sure.
So then I started. Here's the kicker, Charles. This is what swayed me as well. It was a large attribute to that. Uh, Not only does it do damage to soft tissues, so if you're trapped in this room and you have no respirator and you get that gas, you're going to struggle breathing, and it's going to damage your respiratory system, and it's going to damage it significantly.
Yep.
So I read that. I got all that from high doses of O3. But what I really picked up on was that it kills germs and bacteria
Yeah.
and also removes odor. So
Absolutely.
not only did I see the bed bug potential, but I said, you know what? In my opinion, I think we got maybe another 5 years of bed bugs that we're going to capitalize on before they find another magic bullet that's
Sure.
going to come in and do something. So I'm looking for life after the bed bugs, and
You're
I've got
looking for when they figure out a solution for the vector problem and they knock the bed bugs back into check for another 50 years again until they pop up. And you're thinking to yourself, what am I going to do with all my heaters?
exactly, exactly. I've got all these heaters. Well, I won't be cold in the wintertime. I can tell you that. But other than that, uh, nothing. I mean, they're going to be pretty good conversation pieces. I'll be able to tell war stories about how many bed bugs I killed with my heaters.
So it attracted you at the outset when I told you that you can take the same exact equipment and apply it to making more money for your business with a different hook in the water.
Yep,
I see.
and I have. I've done some odor removal already with it,
You have.
and as you know, I've started discussing with you some of the mold remediation abilities of this equipment as well,
Yep.
because uh, unfortunately we're going to have mold that will be around a lot longer than bedbugs.
Well,
Uh,
the first mold remediation protocol, Mike, is found in Leviticus chapter 14. And minus the ozone generators and the chemicals, it's about identical with what we do today.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
So it has been with us for thousands of years or millions of years, and it'll be with us long into the future.
Correct.
And, when I got into the mold business, I did not quite realize just how significant of an effect it has on your health or how many sick people I'd meet. I mean, I thought it was a great, like you, a sideline to your business. I thought it was a good sideline to my basement waterproofing business because all my basement customers way back then had water problems, and with water problems comes mold. But as I got into it, I found that it's a pernicious evil that really can wreak havoc in someone's life and their home. But back to the bedbug equipment. So, how long have you owned my systems?
6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
So, you got them in late January, I think I remember.
That's correct.
And this is almost July 1st. It's June 30th today. So, in 6 months' time, you bought the equipment, you bought two systems, and you started using it. What did you do at the beginning? Did you practice on your own house, or how did you learn to use the equipment? We talked about the learning curve that's associated with other systems. What was it like when you got the equipment out of the box and started to put it to use to learn how the equipment works and what you were going to need to do to use it successfully?
Well, I can actually I had a hallway in my house that I had a sick cat and she'd gone in there and put some pet odor in there and so I took one afternoon and I told my wife when she went out shopping I said I want to go ahead and try and deodorize this thing and so I took the System 40 and or excuse me the 20 the smaller
Yep.
generator and one of the X2s and put them in there. And the first thing that I noticed after I'd run them for a little while, uh, one was the unique smell, and the smell is associated. I associate it with dry cleaning.
Hmm.
Through my research, I found out that they use O3 uh, in dry cleaning process.
Lots
So
of dry cleaners use it.
absolutely. So you'll kind of get that whiff of the O3 on your clothing, and you'll recognize the smell. That's where you're going to recognize it from. But the next thing that I noticed was a haze that had built up in my house. And
So you're saying one of my tiny little machines was able to make a haze in your house?
yes,
You know, I,
yes.
I, I interviewed or I was talking to a potential customer who's used a bunch of other ozone equipment from other companies it was a while back, 6 months ago or so. And he was telling me that when I told him that my equipment would make a blue haze of ozone gas, he said, Charles, I've been using ozone equipment for 8 years and I've never seen a haze from ozone. And I said, well, that's because you're using low powered ozone equipment and definitely nothing capable of pressurizing a room, definitely nothing capable of making super amounts, the kind you need to destroy all the odors, kill all the viruses, kill all the mold spores, and anything else that doesn't evacuate in the process. So, did it get rid of the odor?
It did in the air, but obviously not down on the carpet. I
Uh-huh.
wasn't able to ozone into the carpet.
Yeah.
I did try blowing the X2, the 28,000 milligrams. I tried getting that down into the carpet. And I know you got equipment that's specifically designed for that.
I do have
Um,
a carpet machine that would have knocked it out, but
uh, but I did a death scene deodorizing. I've done another apartment that had a big urine smell in there. Same thing. I took it out of the air, but not out of the floor, so they had to replace some subflooring in there. You know where it was just totally
sure.
saturated. Uh,
How did you
cigarette
on the
odor.
dead body odor?
What about it?
How did it work?
Great,
Awesome.
great. Yep.
Cigarette smoke?
Yes, it does get rid of smoke. I've gone into a place that was occupied for about 10 years by heavy smokers. The management went in after I treated it, said they couldn't smell it. A day or so later, they could just barely smell it. So it would have needed my complete system in there and I'd have knocked it out. That was just with a 28,000 milligram and a 42,000 milligram in a three-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
So had I put my entire system in there, I think we'd have knocked it out completely.
Well, you've now talked to some of my odor removal experts and realized just exactly what kind of big gas it takes to even be successful in odor removal. And there have been a bunch of companies that have come and gone trying to build odor removal systems. And the big lack in all of the systems is both positive pressurization capability and big gas potential. And you really need both to make the system work permanently. So, about how many jobs have you done killing bed bugs with the machines?
In 6 months, I bet you I have averaged what was that? About 27 weeks, 26 weeks since then, and I bet you I've done three a week. So
3
you
a
do the
week.
math.
Got it. So,
75 jobs, 50 plus.
got it. So
And,
you're working between 50 and 100 jobs already done with the equipment.
that's correct.
And you mentioned to me at the beginning your first couple of jobs you had callbacks while you were learning to use the system. But after you've played with the variables, you were and talked to me, you were able to get it to work every time.
The thing is I'm one of these people that I'm not a rules follower. I'm a thinker.
Yep.
Take what I've got and then I'll manipulate it until I find something that satisfies me.
Just like your concept of putting your heaters on the perimeter and working the heat inward rather than working central outward like most folks do.
Absolutely. So I went in and I tried these generators. I didn't really use the CO2 generators uh, as effectively as I could have. And then I also, the first time I fogged, I realized how much fog there was. So I didn't fog as heavy the next time. And your fogger puts out an incredible amount of fog. Uh, so I will say I was a little bit apprehensive about going in there and just hitting it with the bull in the China
Yeah.
store mentality. Um, I did that twice, and then after that, I said, "The heck with it. We're going to go lock, stock, and barrel on this thing." And I'll even go as far as to say, if I don't have both systems in two different locations, I'll double my system up in one location.
Ah,
So
yeah.
pretty much every day, I'm using both systems. Pretty much every day.
Awesome.
And one thing I'll get back to on the blue fog, my technicians, when I train them on this system, I tell them, if you don't have blue fog, we're not killing bugs.
Right.
So they stay in that place until we actually keep everything dark. We close all the blinds and everything. As we know, bed bugs are nocturnal, so you
Yep.
try and trick them. So we black everything out the best we can, and then we go in with a flashlight to do inspections periodically throughout treatment. Um, and what I do as soon as I walk in, when I pop in on them, I walk in, I hit my flashlight. If I don't see blue fog, I start looking at my machine to see why we don't have blue fog.
Mm,
Uh, there's a window open or there's something that's going wrong in there
sure.
for it not to be full of blue fog. But I can assure you, if you don't have the fog, you're not killing bugs.
Yep. And so you have learned that by following the recipe, using the equipment, and doing a 5 to 6 hour gas treatment coupled with the essential oil and the mechanical dust, that you're getting no callbacks.
That's correct.
You're not finding any activity in your inspections.
That's correct.
You're a skilled, trained bedbug guy who's used heat for 4.5 years or 4 years plus, and you know what to look for, and you can definitively say it works.
I can definitively say it works.
And you were a skeptic at the beginning.
I was a skeptic, quite honestly, up till probably a month ago.
So,
Is is
so even
is
after
much
you'd been killing the bugs and you were not getting callbacks, you still didn't believe it.
correct?
I think Oklahoma's next to Missouri, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Just
Yes, it is.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've had a lot of jobs in Missouri over the years, and they call that place the Show Me State for a reason. The first time I cracked a basement floor there doing a waterproofing job, it was 1 foot thick of concrete. And that guy, I just imagine that man, that farmer pouring that floor. He said, they say 4 inches won't crack. Well, I say 12 inches won't crack. Show me." It was a good one. But so you've done 75 plus bed bug jobs. You've played around with odor removal. Have you started talking to your property managers about odor removal in your apartments?
I have not, and the reason I have not is truly I am buried
In work.
with work right now. I mean, we are so buried. I'm trying to hire people, and I'm sure that this state's no different than the other. It's hard to find help. It's impossible to find good help. Uh,
Yeah.
but once I get my technicians lined back up, I hire more technicians, which is a good thing. I'm hiring more people.
Yeah.
Uh, but once I get that going, then I'm going to start focusing on the mold remediation
And the odor
as
removal.
well as the odor removal
Sure.
and buying more systems.
Well, the great thing about the odor removal business is it is something that can be done by a retiree. And you had mentioned to me, finding good labor is impossible. And I found in my business that I really have to go older to get good workers, not younger. And there's so many senior citizens out there that are looking for a break or to be valuable, to provide some use. most of them, the older men in their 60s and 70s can still carry these machines, set them up, set the timer, push a button, and then go have coffee for 5 hours while the system runs and come back and do it. And I've talked to several of my guys that are doing this. Some of them prefer no employees, and some of them would rather never touch a machine. And the ones that would rather never touch a machine have found that by paying the uh, guy you have setting the equipment up to do the odor removal end and breaking it down a percentage of the job, 25 or $30 off the top, they can set up 2 or 3 jobs in a day, make a fair wage for themselves, because really we're talking an hour worth of work for each project. To collect $30 for an hour is good money for a retiree, and you have your very expensive equipment in the hands of people that have been around long enough to know better. But so back to the bed bugs. You do see the potential in the business of odor removal and mold remediation, and you found that the system does work to kill bed bugs. Do you do any kind of advertising about the green aspect of the technology, or you haven't forayed into that at all?
I make mere mention of it whenever I present my system. I have not focused on the green aspect of the treatment. Um, I do focus on the bonus of killing the bacteria and viruses. I do take that shot every chance.
And what's the reception been like of your customers to find out they're not just getting a bed bug treatment, they're getting an odor removal and sanitization of all the surfaces in the structure at the same time?
They don't really seem as interested. It's one of those type
Uh-huh.
results you get. But when they come home after the treatment and they smell the freshness of the fog, but they also smell the crisp air of the O3, they like that. They come in and they really like that it smells pleasant when they come back. Because it got rid of the old musty smell in their house or the old dog smell or
Yeah.
whatever the case. And
Well,
so
I can imagine that some PCOs watching this might be concerned about the essential oil component. And we've tested dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of green products at the beginning of our system, putting it together to find the best 25B product to marry with the ozone. And cedar is one of the most common ingredients in most of those green treatments, or thyme, or some other pungent aroma that really seems to offend some folks. They either like it or they don't. But we noticed in our beta test group that we had zero complaints from the female homeowners after a treatment, which was one of my concerns initially, because it does leave a pleasant scent in the air. And we actually had women that were asking us for more of the product so that they could use it as an air freshener. What was your experience like? Have you had anyone that didn't like the way it smelled, or is that a complaint you ever hear?
I have not heard that complaint yet. I have had people comment on the pleasant smell. I'm sure it's like any smell. After you smell it for a couple of days, you're probably wanting it to go away. But the one thing that I will say about that smell is that it does stay there, which is good. I see that as a good thing, and people enjoy it. I think I've had one person say, it's lingered around a little bit too long, in which case I explained to them the operation of their external air retraction unit. We call them windows in Oklahoma, but I explained to them how to open the doors and windows and let it air out a little bit if it happens to be that strong. But I haven't. I've had one person out of I've done 75 jobs since then.
So you're really not getting that as an objection.
Nope, not at all.
So if you're trying to, if someone would call you up and they said, Mike, I'm looking at buying this equipment, why should they buy the equipment? What would be the reason that they would do it? And can you share with them how your skepticism would turned into belief?
Well, as long as they weren't in Oklahoma, I would say uh, it's very well worth the investment. The reason you need to spend the money is because uh, without all the other additional income streams you can create, just in the bed bug business alone, when you go out and you start explaining to the customer the uniqueness of this system, uh, and then how you compile that along with the fog, along with your mechanical treatment, the dust, you've got a basically a three step system to kill the bed bugs. With the attachments that come with the machines and stuff like that, you can go into couches, beds, box springs. You don't have to tear furniture apart anymore like you did in the old days when you were having to put some kind of aerosol in every crack and crevice. Um, so, one, the biggest reason that I got the system was time. Time is money. If I've got 20 hours treating a house, I've now picked up 14 hours of additional day that I can, do something we call sleep, um, and then possibly even work another job in that same time span. So now I've doubled my income
So,
by doing two jobs in the time it took me to do one.
so if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're saying that you've done enough jobs that you've easily paid for the cost of the investment. Your equipment is free and clear by now.
Yes,
You are in pure profit at this point using the system. You're looking at exploring the additional revenue streams and have already started bringing some money in using the odor removal aspect. You see broad horizons with the mold because you've got your techs already crawling through crawl spaces and other parts of houses anyway that can find these types of problems. And the equipment works. But even better than all that, even having paid for itself with Federal Reserve notes and real dollars, you've got your money back. You've actually been able to cut your treatment times by a half to a third. So,
yes,
how much is that extra time worth on top of all of that money?
time is money. I've heard that my whole life.
Yep, I see. So, is there anything that you would tell anyone else if they were looking to you to buy it, or have you said all that there is to say?
I would just say if you can afford it, buy two or three systems. If you have the business potential there. I've bought two systems. I'm looking at buying a third system because right now, I mean, literally, I'm getting bed bug calls daily, and I am probably the most expensive guy around. I'm not even anywhere close to the cheapest guy.
Hmm.
I'm probably 3 to 4 times the cost of what your typical pest company goes out there and does. The beauty of that is I've got minimal chemical expenses. Uh, I've got the initial investment of the equipment, and then I've got the man hours, and that's it. I don't have to go back and retreat. The system takes probably 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes to set it up properly, make sure everything's turned on, make sure everything's working right. Now, you send remote controls and timers with your system. I don't use those. And the reason I don't use those is in my opinion, it makes you lazy because it's easy to just turn it on and come back in 6 hours and call it good. I make my technicians go in and inspect. I want to see the results. I've done this myself. I go in. Here's the ironic part, Charles. I've never worn a protective suit, and I have yet to bring a bed bug home. And I've been in literally hundreds and hundreds of bed bugs infested places.
Mhm.
The thing is when I get into these O3 systems and back in the old days of heat, I'm in that system. So whatever's on me is going to suffer the same fate as what's in the room with me.
That's true.
So, uh, so I don't freak out about bed bugs. I respect bed bugs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that arrogant about them. But the thing is if you're attentive and you just follow a couple of safety precautions, you won't take them home with you. One is you never want to touch the furniture. Definitely don't lay down in somebody's bed and sleep while the system's running. Uh, Respirator and a cold beer in your hand. But anyway, so I don't advise that. But go in there and just be careful. The system itself is definitely worth the investment. You're right. I've paid for that system probably 2 or 3 times already. The only continual cost that you have is just the labor of doing the job. Um, So it's worth the investment. You'll turn it around quick. Now, if you don't do but two or three bed bug jobs a month, and that's all that your region is really producing, buy one system.
Yeah.
Buy a system either way. It's going to make you money.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy morning today, Mike. I know you're super slammed with jobs, and I really appreciate the time. If anyone else watching this video has any other questions, they can contact me directly. And if I can't answer them, I'll refer you to Mike or to one of my other many system owners across the country who would be willing to field simple questions for you about how the system works. Don't take our word for it. Buy one for yourself today, kill some bed bugs, and prove it to yourself in the field. I'm Charles. This is Mike LaPlante. And Mike, I thank you for your time.
Very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Have a blessed one, Mike. Is there anything else you need from me?